Hello, everyone. My name is Zach Honavar. I'm calling into you guys live from Los Angeles, California, from my desk where I work. And I'm going to give you guys a little bit of background on myself. And then we're going to jump into creator merch and why it's actually better for creators to build brands, and how creators now, big and small, can kind of choose a different approach to building a brand for themselves that in the most ideal fashion will actually live beyond and can potentially live beyond their career as a creator and build something that's a real company that they can have, run, operate, and reap value from for a very, very long time. So I'll start with a little bit of background on myself. I'm originally from Toronto, Canada. I went to university at a school called Wilfrid Laurier University. And shortly after, I began working at a small Canadian startup called Shopify. And if you're not familiar with Shopify, Shopify is an e-commerce platform that allows making a website and selling products incredibly easy. When I joined fresh out of university, it was a startup that not too many people knew about. It ended up growing incredibly fast. It's now one of the largest Canadian companies. And I was very fortunate to get a really early front row seat to be involved on that rocket ship as we grew to helping making a brand online drastically easier than it ever has been in the past. And throughout my experience there, I got to witness a lot of different stores being launched by creators, stores being launched by celebrities, things like Kylie Cosmetics being started and grown into $1 billion brand within a matter of a year or a couple of years. Things like Golf by Tyler, the Creator, things like different merch lines through whether that be Maverick by Logan Paul, whether that be the Fanjoy ensemble with other creators, or whether that just be artist tour merch like Justin Bieber and his Purpose Tour and collaboration with Jerry Lorenzo from Fear of God. And so I got to see a lot of really cool things from some of these more VIP, whether it be creator or artist people, and got to see them start something from scratch. About 3 years after my time at Shopify, I ended up moving down to Los Angeles, California to work with a set of creators called Yes Theory. They're a YouTube group that's, I believe, recently surpassed 5.5 million subscribers. We started working together when they were around 400,000. And we actually, together, as part of one of the early things we did together, launched their clothing line called Seek Discomfort. And I'll be going through that story and how that plays into the philosophy of creators building brands and not merch. But basically, we started together, wanted to create this clothing line under their motto, which is Seek Discomfort. It was something that was their slogan. It was what they stood for. It was the philosophy of what they wanted to represent in the world. And we decided to create a clothing line that had that as the title and name of the business, and then grow it into something that was an embodiment of that philosophy. We knew that people didn't necessarily want to wear Yes Theory on their chest. They didn't necessarily want to wear Matt, Thomas, and Amar, the three founders' faces on their chest. What they identified more with the brand that was Yes Theory was the philosophy that it carried, that a lot of people resonated with and said, oh, I want to live my life that way. I want to actively put myself in ways that make me uncomfortable in order so I can grow and become a better person. And so we recognized that was something that people saw within the brand and related with, and we decided to create a clothing line through that. That was about 3 years ago when that started. Seek Discomfort has grown tremendously over the years, both off the back of Yes Theory being able to grow and scale their business and their following, but also on the fact that Seek Discomfort's been able to take on legs of its own and now appeals to people that have actually no idea what Yes Theory is. And that's a really beautiful transition. And that's the transition I think we're going to be getting into today, and how that's possible, how that can be orchestrated from the beginning, and a bunch of other questions. So I'm going to get into a bunch of the little things that I think creators should be thinking about, whether the creator has 1 million followers or subscribers, or whether the creator is just starting out with 50 or 100. I think a lot of these same principles will hold true. So yeah, I think one of the first things I tell a creator that is starting up a brand is to just for a second before wanting to rush into launching something, I think it's a really good idea to step back and identify your brand, its direction, and the products and services that are kind of core to your ecosystem. So with the Yes Theory guys, it was such a broad brand that there was no particular product or service that they used all the time that was also had a feasibility of making. So what I mean by that is, a lot of the creators in the beauty and cosmetic space, well, it's obviously really easy for them to say, oh, well, a lot of these cosmetic products are core to my brand, and I'm using these products in my videos all the time. So being able to create my own cosmetic company or cosmetic product has become, kind of a no-brainer for a lot of the people in this space. But for a group of creators that are known to go on adventure videos and are known to have a large variety in the types of videos that they're doing, there's no real one product that they were using over and over again. And definitely none of those that were, unless we started our own airline, which I wish we had the capital to do, there wasn't really anything that lent itself really easily to that. So we said, clothing is something that we're passionate about. Fashion is something that we're passionate about. And more than that, we realized that we had we were wearing clothes that we didn't like throwing logos on or brands on that we didn't resonate with. We'll buy a pair of Nike shorts because they're comfortable and the performance of them is great, but there's nothing really about the Nike brand that we were like super resonating with or that made us feel connected to that philosophy of Nike. So then that's where we said, okay, seek discomfort is something that is a motto that whether you know Yes Theory or not, you might see that and go, oh, that's how I want to live my life. And so that's kind of how the brand started, is we said, what can we start a brand around that has the legs to potentially grow beyond the following that we have and become a real actual business. And so we started there. And I think one of the other things to think about in these times is to give the audience what they want. I think for a lot of creators, a sign that you should probably start selling some sort of product is if your comment section is demanding it. If your top comment on your YouTube videos are, please launch merch, or hey, please release a shirt that has XYZ saying that you say all the time on it, it's probably a good idea that people either want to really support you or they really vibe with the direction that you're going and the messages that you're portraying in your videos. So I'll walk you through some of the first things you want to think of when you finally get to the place where you go, okay, I know what my direction is, and I know what kind of brand I want to start. And there was a question in here. We got some preceded questions. There was a question around how do you know whether you should launch merch, just like basic clothing, or whether you should launch a different product. And I think that's really just about self-awareness of the brand and the ease of actually creating that product. I think one of the first things you also want to recognize is whether you are someone that actually wants to get involved into the learning curve of products, consumer ventures, and merchandise, or whether you actually want to be a little bit more passively involved. So one of the other things that I'll mention here is we ended up actually creating a merchandising business together that helps creators launch brands rather than merch. And so we help with a lot of the aspects that allow the creator to focus on what they do best, which is be a phenomenal creator, create engaging content, and make really great videos, while we handle what we do best, which is the sourcing of the garments and the products, the customer service, the fulfillment, the warehousing, the website, the design. Because oftentimes for a creator, it can be really, it can be like running with a weighted vest on to not only maintain the quality of your content, but to also need to, on top of that, now run a entire brand. It can be pretty daunting. So I think one of my first pieces of advice is recognize whether you want to do that and you have the capacity to do that. And if the real answer is no, then I think you need to start looking at finding a team. And that team can be a manager. I think that team can be a merchandising or brand building business, such as Fan of a Fan. There's a bunch of other ones like FanJoy and MerchCamp. They all do things very differently, where some of them provide very basic services, but service a number of different creators, all the way to businesses like Fan of a Fan that have a smaller group of creators, but provide a lot more hands-on support and are also building more premium brands that have products that range well outside of clothing. But for those of you that are looking to start, one of the first things you're going to want to think of if you are thinking of launching something within the clothing space is how you're going to test your demand. So you want to test your demand before you ever go into any scenario and say, I want to order 3,000 shirts. Because the number one problem that can happen is when you pre-order your clothing is that now you have a lot of cash tied up in those shirts. 3,000 shirts at $5 a shirt, that's a lot of money. Obviously 3,000 is a huge number, but even if you order 500, even if you order 200, if you have no real idea of where and how many shirts are going to be bought by your audience, then it can be very risky to tie up cash there. And obviously as creators that are emerging, you want to try to spend as much as you can on the videos and on your team and on growth. So one of the first things you can do to kind of test out the demand, you have two options. A lot of people like drop shipping and a lot of people like pre-saling. And the difference there is that drop shipping is you find a service where there's no inventory kept. You basically uploaded a shirt with a design on it. And every time that's bought, that's sending a message somewhere to say, hey, make one of these, put this design on it and send it out. The cons of this model are that usually what's available to you at a drop ship price or a drop ship model, more times than not, the quality is sometimes subpar. You're not going to be able to customize stuff. A lot of people find it important to have woven labels on their clothing, to have custom neck tags on their clothing, to have levels of customization that are more than just putting a design within like the basic square of your chest of your t-shirt. And so if you really want to start with an elevated approach, then I wouldn't recommend drop shipping. I also think although drop shipping is a very low risk model, I think there are other ways to mitigate risk while maintaining a higher level of quality and brand like elevation. And so one of those things can be to do a pre-sale model. Now with the pre-sale model, it's something that you want to make sure that you have two things. One, a partner that can turn around the inventory and the creation of that product very quickly. And the other thing is a really transparent communication to your audience of the fact that it's pre-sale. Because a lot of times when it's pre-sale, that basically means we're not holding any inventory for a limited amount of time. We're going to put these items on the store. You guys can buy them for 48, 72 hours, and then we're going to shut the site down and we're going to take all those orders and we're going to go make them and send them to you. That process can often take weeks. If not done well, that process can sometimes take a month or two. And so you want to make sure that the partner that you're choosing to work with has experience turning around really quick pre-sale drops. The good thing here is that, I see a lot of creators in the questions ask, how do I make sure that I just don't start tiring my audience out by plugging merch in every video all the time, like some creators do that can tend to be annoying. And the real answer is pre-sale model sometimes protects against that. You can say, hey, I'm just going to do one drop every month. And your one video that's releasing your merchandise and is releasing that capsule. And you can just go really hard for 3 days and say, plug merch, plug merch, plug merch. And then after that, you can kind of step back and start, just doing your regular videos, maybe your regular brand deals, but you're not in a situation where you're going every single day, hey, by the way, go buy merch, by the way, go buy merch. And so that will protect against that by being able to do a pre-sale model. The thing is, creators are actually drastically have a competitive advantage over regular brands on being able to do pre-sale models because they control the audience. When a YouTube video goes out, thousands or hundreds or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people are going to be going to your video and are therefore able to then go off into landing on your website and potentially buying some of your items. One of the things you're going to want to think about after you've decided whether you're going to do dropship, inventory, or pre-sale is your website. I would recommend, with no bias, that you use Shopify for your website. It makes things a lot easier. And try to find a partner that has the ability to design a website too. Although if you're savvy enough, you can go in and pop in and try to play around with Shopify and build something. I just saw a question come in from the audience that was around, is it important to have a flashy website? My answer to this is absolutely not. It is not super important to have a flashy website. The actual important thing is to have a very simple and easy to find the product website. So what you actually want to do is one of the terminologies in e-commerce and in websites is the top fold of a website. Basically what that means is when you go on Nike.com, what you see before you start scrolling is the top fold. One good practice is to make sure you have products ready to click on in that top fold. So what you don't want is like a banner that's going to play a video that has, nothing to do with the product, or even if it does have something to do with the product, those types of things actually reduce the amount of conversion because it makes people have to jump through hoops to go find a product. Plus, videos on your websites are actually not the best idea because it increases load time on a page. And what you actually really want to do is make sure that your file sizes on all parts of your website are small so that the page loads really quickly. Because as all of you know, we have the attention span of goldfish nowadays. And if someone is popping onto a website and it takes more than they want for it to load, they're out of there and they're probably never coming back. You really have to think about selling products as a creator, or launching brands, and even selling merch as kind of a game of this funnel. And the funnel is such that when you're doing your videos, or where you're doing your Instagram posts or your YouTube videos or whatever it is that's generating the audience that you're pushing towards buying products for you, you're trying to get as large of a funnel as possible. So that means you want as many people to leave your YouTube video and you want them to go onto the merch site. In order to do that, one best practice that I think everyone should have is just don't plug anything else. What you don't want to do is you don't want to have a video where you go, hey, everyone, go follow me on Instagram, go follow me on Twitter, my merch is live, so go buy my merch, and whatever else. Here, text me on this number. So what you don't want to do is do that, because then you're telling your audience 5 different things, and they definitely don't have the attention span to go follow 5 different things. So some of them will go follow you on Instagram, some of them will click your Twitter, and some of them will go to your merch site. When you plug your merch, you really want to make sure that as many people as possible just go to the website. Because what happens when they go to the website is they're now part of like a conversion funnel. So, let's say for simple math purposes, 100,000 people watch your YouTube video and you tell everyone, go, buy my merch. And let's say 10% of those 100,000, so 10,000 people go to your merch site. Well, now 10,000 people have landed on that top fold. Now, if you have items on the top fold, let's say of those 10,000 people, 2,000 of them click on a product. Of those 2,000 that click on a product, let's say 500 end up adding it to their cart. Of the 500 that added to their cart, 200 actually check out. And at the end of the day, now you have 200 orders of those products from the fact that you had 100,000 people view your video to all those. So that's like a basic funnel. And what you want to end up doing is you want to try to make sure that the conversions are as high as possible in that. Now, it's not a lot for the creator to think about, but all that's the bigger part for the creator to think about is you want to make sure the number that comes in at the top of that is as high as possible. And you do that by making sure that you don't plug anything else, and that you do it in a way that's really natural to your style of content. If you're a comedian or you're doing funny videos, have fun. Make the way that you're plugging the merch or brand humorous. Play it into a skit, or make it something that is as enjoyable to watch as your other content. If you are someone that feels like your audience is really trying to support you, you're trying to accomplish very audacious goals, then let the audience know that you really rely on their support from a merchandising standpoint to help you financially, and that this is actually their way to enable you to create videos like you do on a much bigger level, to pay for the things that you do. This is especially popular with creators like the Nelk Boys or David Dobrik, who don't monetize their videos and therefore say, well, we're not getting paid from YouTube, we're not getting any ad revenue. So therefore, if you guys do want to support us and make sure that we're making money off the value that we're creating through this content, then here's the way to do that. And so those are some popular ways that creators are successfully plugging their brands in order to make that top of funnel as big as possible. When you are evaluating a partner, I saw a lot of questions around how do I make sure I'm picking a right partner? How do I know who to trust? What are the structures of merchandising companies or brand building businesses? I would say what's probably really standard with a lot of merch businesses or brand businesses is that they're going to participate with you on a percentage of your profit or revenue. Those percentages vary. I would say anywhere between 15% to 30%. I've heard even of more in some cases. But I don't think that that's bad, and I don't think that should scare you. I think that you want a partner that knows what they're doing. I think you want a partner that is able to take a lot of load off your plate and allow you to focus on what you do best. That's our philosophy with Fan of a Fan anyway, is that we don't want creators to have to be executives of their own brand. We want them to actually focus on what they do best, which is the marketing and that funnel, while we do what we think we do best, which is all the nitty gritty parts of the ecosystem and supply chain and warehousing and customer service. And the percentage of revenue or the percentage of profit model is structured so that, hey, if you sell, well, we're going to get paid. And if you don't sell, well, then we're not going to get paid. So you're really creating a partnership from that perspective. And you're also incentivizing that partner to win with you and lose with you, and also keep it in their best interest to make sure that they also help you push the brand better. And that's where a lot of brands, if you're a smaller creator, you're going to want to find a partner that's willing to grow with you, that believes in the brand, not for where it is today, but where it can be in a year, where it can be in 2 years. And so shop around for that, because oftentimes it takes a merch company or a brand building business to really believe in you for the long run, before they get into things like that. So that's how to plug. Another thing you're going to want to know, these are some like quick things I'll jot down just so that you guys can know. If you're going to sell any piece of apparel, do not leave the supplier's tag on the neck. So, shirts have these little tags that have the brand on them, on the neck. A lot of times creators will just put their logos on the chest of a piece of apparel, but they won't remove that neck tag, or the merch company doesn't do that. It will go from, basic merch to an elevated portion just by making your own neck tag. And that should be custom, or that should be pretty standard at every merch company. But I think that's like the basic number one step that you can take towards building something that's a brand, that, the shirt's not coming with a Gildan tag on the neck or a Bella and Canvas tag on the neck, because I think that already kind of like solidifies it as merch. One of the other things you're going to want to think about is, in my eyes, one of the most important pieces of the entire brand building process is customer service. I think that's one of the best ways that you can actually say to yourself, I'm a brand, I'm not merch. Because as we all know, it's extremely frustrating when a brand does not have good customer service. It's actually one of the things that I think a lot of these big celebrity-driven brands like a Kylie Cosmetics didn't do incredibly well. Although they were able to sell like crazy, the product was really cool, a lot of these teams neglected the fact that there's not things don't always go perfect. Things get lost in the mail, things get delayed, product end up coming broken, and that is just the nature of the business. It'll never ever be perfect. You're never going to have all products received in tip-top shape. There's always a percentage that will either get lost or will get damaged en route. And so you want a team that is able to make your audience and your consumers feel valued, feel important, feel heard. And so you really want to make sure that whatever partner you go with really invests into customer service, because at the end of the day, you can have a very loyal audience that loves your videos, that loves you and your personality, ends up loving your brand, buying products, and all it takes is one really poor experience with like not being replied to by customer service, or being treated poorly by customer service, or not given direct answers, to say, wow, this really has tarnished the image of this creator in my mind, even if you're so removed from this process. So I would say one of the things you want to evaluate with a merchandising business or a brand building business is their ability to help you with customer service. It's also a big reason why we've invested in hiring our own customer service team with Fan of a Fan, because it was one of the things we knew very early on. This isn't something that we want to outsource somewhere. This isn't something that we want to hire external people for. This is something we want to own and develop ourselves, and build a system in which people can build the rules of responses for customer service inquiries themselves. So oftentimes it feels like the consumer that has a question is getting an answer in a way that makes them feel like it's the same tone of voice and the same language that the creator would use. And I think that oftentimes feels really good as a consumer, and it fits the experience from end to end, from the moment they see the creator selling the merch to the moment that they're being told, hey, like, sorry about the mix up, here's a discount code for your problems, and we apologize and that won't happen again. If that tone of voice and that experience is good, usually more times than not, people don't actually care. People understand that things go wrong. People understand that things get lost. People understand that these things are out of control, but they just want to be treated with respect, and they want to be treated like they're valued. And so that's the important part. It's not about getting the process perfect. It's about making sure people are heard and responded to in an orderly fashion. Warehousing and fulfillment. I don't want to get too nitty gritty and technical, but make sure that you're chatting with your merchandising or brand building businesses about their fulfillment capabilities, about their shipping rates. International shipping is a nightmare. It's a nightmare. It's really, really hard. No one can really do it well. Even the biggest brands in the world struggle with it. Things always get lost. No one has really been able to figure out international shipping. Even just shipping in general is one of these areas where the biggest brands in the world haven't figured it out. Amazon is probably one of the closest I have ever gone to where they are, and they're Amazon. So don't get frustrated if you have an incredibly large international following, and sometimes it's hard or expensive to ship things from the USA to Australia, or from the USA to the UK, or to India, to Brazil. These are things that when you're starting small, it's better to start with what you can control and build the brand slowly. It's really hard to go from like, hey, I have nothing and I have no merch line, to flipping a switch and like shipping overnight to Australia for $5. It's just not realistic, and it's not going to happen. And any merchandising brand building partner that tells you differently, quite frankly, is lying, because it's very, very expensive to do these things, and the infrastructures needed to build these things are incredibly hard to do. But there are ways that you can start small and start building up the ability to do that. And there are even opportunities to say, we are going to keep our merchandise or our brand only open to these countries until we actually feel like we have the demand or the infrastructure or the resources to ship outside of that. So anyway, with that said, I'm going to just list out 3 or 4 points really quickly on what I think separates a merch line from a brand. I also want to iterate that although I do think creators should build brands and not merch, it's still totally okay for a creator to decide to build merch. So these are some of the things that I think can elevate, if we're doing clothing, from something that's just a brand, from just a merch line to being like a brand that can live outside of that creator. So one of the main things there is feed it through other influencers and creators. Brands come to creators all the time. If you're a creator that's looking to do merch, I'm sure you've been approached at one time or another by a brand to plug something. And a lot of creators don't actually realize that the brands that they're starting can actually grow by doing the same thing. And the thing is, a lot of creators have creator friends. They have influencer friends. And so reach out to your network, see if people would be down to get a free item. Usually don't, the same way you want to be treated as a creator, treat other creators. So don't demand of them to post. Try to just say like, hey, I want to get your thoughts on this process and this product. Let me know if you like it. Let me know if you'd make adjustments, or just like, hey, thank you for always supporting me and being there for me, being a friend. Here's like a free shirt or a free sticker pack or whatever that might be. And if they post, that's great. This does require you to sink a bit of money into this, because it is marketing essentially. But I think it's very well worth it. And I think that these things work really, really well. And so one of the other things there is try your best to collaborate with real brands. If you have launched a merch line and you want it to be elevated and you don't want it to feel like a merchandising line, try to have either your management or yourself reach out to some existing brands that you like and see if they'd be open to collaborating with you. One of the best ways to elevate your brand is to have it associated with brands that are elevated. So for example, with Seek Discomfort, one of our strategies was any product that we find is really, really hard to make ourselves, we will partner with a brand that can do that much better than us. So for example, with Seek Discomfort, we collaborated with Lululemon because we realized that making athletic apparel to the quality of Lululemon was near impossible. Obviously, Lululemon's full-time business as a multi-billion-dollar business is doing that. And so they have an extreme competitive advantage of doing that at a price point that's affordable. And so we recognized, it's probably better to try to collaborate with Lululemon, give them exposure to our audience, and then capitalize on their manufacturing capabilities, plus the brand equity there. So that we've collaborated with Bose headphones, collaborated with Timbuktu backpacks. And so these are all examples of ways that you can find a product that's really, it'd be, really hard for us to find our own headphone capabilities or our own backpack capabilities. But if you reach out to those brands, you're bringing something that's really valuable, which is an audience that's ready to buy. And what they're bringing to the table is the ability to tap into that audience and then also associate to themselves to something that's cool, young, hip, or it caters to the audience that they're trying to cater to, if that is the audience that they're catering to through your content. And the last point on that, in order to take something that's merch and elevate it into brands, is just diversify your product. This is sometimes really overlooked. Like, a lot of people, I think, gravitate towards the same types of products, which are often clothes. But even if you are running a clothing company or a clothing brand, you want to try to diversify the type of apparel as much as possible, so that people go, oh wow, like, it's not just a t-shirt and a hoodie and a dad hat. You know, these guys are doing air fresheners, they're doing candles, they're doing swimsuits, they're doing towels, they're doing all these different things that make people go, oh wow, that's actually really different. I've never seen, you know, a creator launch an underwear line or something of these things, natures that are different and unique and stand out and catch people as like, oh wow, this is essentially not what I see from every other creator. So any one of those aha moments or like wow factor moments, I think, are incredibly important to like reframing the perspective of the viewer, the customer. And I think that perspective is really important, because unfortunately, a lot of the times you can go into trying to create a brand, but a lot of times, a lot of your fans will just label it merch. They'll call it merch, which is okay, because these things take time. No one's going to ever just launch a brand day one and everyone's going to be like, that's a brand, that's not merch. Those things take time, and they actually take framing and changing perspectives in order to do so. And those three things that I just mentioned are some of the best ways to do it. So anyway, I'm going to go through the list of questions that I've been receiving here. Feel free to continue to put more in, and I'll answer as many as I can. Question number one is, what are some things that I need to outsource compared to things I can do myself? I would say with things you do not want to do yourself at all, ever, are shipping and fulfillment. You do not want your living room to turn into a fulfillment center. It is tedious. And when we think about, hey, oh my God, I just sold 100 shirts, that's so great, we rarely think about what 100 shirts in boxes look like. That's a lot. And when you think about getting into the multiple hundreds of 1,000, you know, 1,000 t-shirts is a lot of t-shirts that are in boxes that are so heavy that you can't even carry them. So that's often a surprise for a lot of people. And as they get into selling more and more and more, they don't realize like these numbers are a lot, and they're more than I can actually handle with my own hands or my own team. And so don't let your clothing company or your merchandising business take over your life and take over your living room. Outsource the shipping and the fulfillment. I would say if there's anything you really want to do yourself, it might be the design, because if you're outsourcing your designs to a merchandising business or a brand building business, you're now telling them to tell you what your brand is. And that can be really hard. If you are going to outsource it because you don't have design skills yourself, make sure that you're doing a lot of research on your part in order to give them as much background and as much context as possible, so that they can get it as close to what you like as possible. Next question that was just put in was, what makes a good piece of merch, and how can you create something that stands out in a crowd? Is it the logo? Is it the colors? Is it the item itself? It's a really good question. So I think one of the things is there's two parts of actually good merchandise. One of them is the products when they're seen on a screen that people are clicking on and buying, and the other is the experience that they're getting when the clothing comes in. And so I think what makes a good piece of apparel or a good piece of merch on the screen is just something that it's the whole package of, is this different? Is this just super basic? Is this with the trend of the consumer? I think another thing I see a lot of creators do is they don't make the merchandise for their audience, they make the merchandise for themselves. And so if you're a female creator who has a predominantly male audience, well, if you go out and you create female apparel, well, you're catering it to an audience that's predominantly male and actually won't buy those things. So you do have to think about who the consumer is, what they want and what they want to wear, and then try to find a way where if that's not necessarily what you want to wear or what you actually use in your lifestyle, finding original ways to incorporate that into your content without it actually being what you put on. And then when it comes into the mail and someone has the experience of getting it, unboxing it, opening it, you want to have things that pop out. So one of the things is like having a neck tag does that. Having a hang tag has that. So the hang tag is like what, when we were going shopping in the stores pre-COVID, you'd see like the size and the price on, and it's hanging by like one of those like little plastic bands. And so those little things, custom packaging, if you're able to get there and work with a merchandising partner on, all those things elevate it so that the experience of getting that box is not like, hey, here's a rickety old like polyester bag with no branding on it or nothing. You actually want to try to take it a step there. That might not be something you can do in phase one, but it's definitely something you can work towards as you build the brand. Another question is, as a small creator, how can we elevate the quality of our merch without working with a dropship model? I'll reiterate, that is just your best bet is to do a pre-sale model. So your best bet is to say, hey, we're going to sell for 72 hours. Here are the products, but you guys all need to understand that none of these products are made yet, and we're going to shut the site down, turn around, make all these items, and then ship them out to you. So if you guys are cool with that, you'll have to wait a couple weeks. You just want to, again, make sure that when you do that, you have a partner that can turn that around really quickly and that has experience turning that around really quickly. With Fan of a Fan, that's one of like kind of our core competencies and core capabilities. It's not something we do all the time, but for the right partner with a lot of demand at a very short amount of time, it does completely make sense. And it's a really good way to avoid drop shipping and maintain elevated quality. Here's a question that says, brands that have been using creators and influencers to help push products. Now it seems that the creators are the product. How does that change the brand creator relationship? It's a really good question. I think as a creator, you should always ask yourself, when I plug a brand, how much money do I make? And when I plug my own product, whether that be merchandise or what have you, how much money do I make? And try to see if you can ever get to the place where, even if doing a brand integration and brand partnership is paying you slightly more than you're being paid as to do your own merch plug, you want to kind of also recognize that there's other pieces of value in pushing something that you own. The email list that you build from running a merchandising line is probably one of the most important and valuable parts of running a merchandising line. That's an email list that you can now use to push your videos. You can push content that's behind a paywall. You can push events. You can push a book. You can push anything that lives within your creator ecosystem. You can use that email list as a proven list of people that are willing to support you financially. And so that list is actually tremendously more important to a creator than your subscriber list, right? Because YouTube isn't giving you that list. Instagram isn't giving you the list of your followers, but if they buy your merch, then now you have an email and a direct way to go to them and speak with them directly. So you also want to make sure that even if you're being paid more on a brand deal, you might want to actually plug your own thing because you're slowly building something that is going to add and snowball into more value in the future. One question here is thoughts and best practices on live video shopping shows, aka QVC for creators. This is big in China, but not so much here yet. Really impressed that I got this question. Yeah, this is something called shop streaming. It's huge in China. I think it's like a $16 billion industry that has transformed from, being a $1 billion industry a few years ago. It's insanely large in China. It's just starting out here in the USA. And I think it provides an insane opportunity for creators to actually sell things via live stream. There's a couple different platforms out there. I won't name any by name, but that enable creators to sell via a live stream and then have e-commerce functionality to that. Actually, one of them I will name by name. If you go on the Shopify App Store, you can download something called Rozy. It's ROZY, and it does that essentially. It allows you to, similar to how you're viewing the live stream right now, you could be on the live stream saying, "Hey guys, I make these notebooks, and if you go to the link right beside, you can buy one of these notebooks." And it could be you while you're showing the notebook, you're talking about it, you're showing the pages, you're showing the exercises that you've made in it, for example. So that's another thing as well. The number one mistake influencers make when starting merch for the first time. Rushing it is the number one mistake, and buying too much inventory is the number two mistake. Let's see what other questions. How unique should merch be? I've had ideas for shirts with just having it say gender, with checkboxes under it saying non-binary, gender fluid, but I feel like no one will associate with my brand necessarily. So how unique should merchandising be, and should you create multiple SKUs for different types of genders? I think that the easiest way for someone just starting out is to just make products unisex. That allows you to not have to worry about different fits, because as a fit of a garment, it's really hard to try to create more, because now you're just asking to have more inventory risk and to actually need to commit to more items. So what you want to try to do is actually keep that as small as possible and try to keep everything unisex until you can say, oh wow, our products are unisex, but actually the majority of people buying our products are females. And so actually let's start looking at what cuts are females wearing. Is it crop tops? Is it cropped hoodies? Is it tighter fits? Is it shorter length? And then that way you can kind of reverse engineer. But if you start with unisex, you'll be able to cast a wider net of the people that you're catering to and that will actually fit the products. Let me find the next question. Thoughts on influencers pushing products to their followers for profit when they don't believe in the product that they're selling? It's a short-term transactional game. These are the types of creators that they might sell something here and there, but what they're going to do inevitably is they're going to break trust with the viewer. No matter how much you love a creator, no matter how much you love an artist, if you feel like you listen to them because you're a diehard fan and what they ended up selling you was crap, then that's going to break some sort of that relationship and trust with that creator. And so as a creator, you might make a shit ton of money by doing that once or twice, shit ton being subjective, but that will erode the level of trust that you have with your audience. So it's far better to sell something that you believe in, that less people will buy, but you actually think it's valuable for people. Because even if less people buy it and you make less money now, those people will get it, ideally see what you're seeing in that product or service that's great, and then go, wow, I really like I really trust what Zach just pushed in that video. And so when Zach comes out next time and says, hey, also buy this thing, I think it's great. Or, hey, here's the version 2 of that thing you bought last time, you're increasing your rate of return customer. And so it's a lot harder to get someone to buy from you for the first time. It's a lot easier to get someone to buy from you for the second time. And so that's also something a lot of creators forget and neglect, is that getting someone to come back is a lot easier than getting someone to convert for the first time. So you want to make sure that what you give everyone is quality, what you give everyone is a product that you believe in and that you're willing to stand behind, because once you get them in the door, they're probably more willing to interact and be part of that experience with you. Another question we just got was, should you be careful on rebranding if you release a product and aren't happy with it? Yes, you shouldn't do this too many times. So this doesn't mean don't ever rebrand, but it means more of like, this usually comes from people rushing into it, which was kind of like my first forewarning of getting into merchandising, is don't rush into it. And when you rush into it, you end up making a decision that you are not totally on board with, or potentially didn't really think through the first, second, and third order consequences. Or if that was a brand or a thing that the audience really vibed with, and now you're like, crap, now I have to chop that down, go in another direction. And moving your audience sometimes, after 1 or 2 or 3 of these transitions or mind changes, that level of trust, again, it's all about the level of trust with the audience. That level of trust can erode a bit. So you want to make sure you're minimizing the amount of times that you do that. Another question that I think is great is, at which point during a video would you mention the merch, middle or end, and how would you mention and promote it? One of the things is I would definitely have it at the end, because if you mention it at the beginning or the middle, people are aware of it, but they're probably, if they actually like your videos, they're not going to click away from your video right away. And especially thinking to, if you use the logic that the people that are probably buying your merchandise are the people that love your videos the most, well, they probably love your videos so much that they're not willing to click away from your video before they've actually watched it to go buy some merchandise and then come back. They'll probably want to continue watching the entirety of the video for the most part. So it's always a good idea to let people know if you've released merchandise, or if the drop is now live and the pre-sale. Let them know within the first couple minutes of the video that that's the case. but don't tell them to like go, click on the link below at that time. Make it more about like hey, just so you know that this has happened, back to our video, and we'll have more information for you at the end of the video. And at the end of the video, you want to make sure, again, you have one call to action, which is click on the link in the description, which is as high up in the description as you can make it, so that's super easy and straightforward. And that's the only thing you're plugging towards the end of the video. So you're not saying, go click here, go follow my Instagram, go do this thing, go click on my next video. You're saying everyone go to blah, blah, blah.com. The drop is live, or giving more information and context on what's available now. And that way you can try to make sure that it's converting as large of an audience from viewers into visitors on the website. Next question is, how do you keep your brand fresh? How I'm going to answer this is the ability for you to get ahead of the ball in clothing and in merchandising requires you to get ahead of the ball with your video filming and posting calendar. A lot of creators don't want to hear that, but it's actually the truth. Like, if you know what videos you're going to be putting out a month from now, 2 months from now, it kind of allows you to also align your merchandising calendar with that. So you want to try to get ahead of the ball on that. And so you want to try to get ahead of your video schedule and then align that with your merchandising schedule. The other thing is, a lot of people who don't know a lot about supply chain or sourcing or manufacturing are kind of unaware with the timelines of production. But if you really want high quality garments and you want high quality goods, it's unrealistic to think that you're going to get it within 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. The more custom your item is and the more high quality your item is going to be, the longer that production timeline. And so that's also why you want to know what you're doing ahead of time. So you can tell your merchandising, your brand building partner, like, hey, this is the item I want, but you're totally cool taking 3 weeks to go manufacture it, especially when you're creating large amounts, like hundreds of units. So kind of making sure you're ahead of the ball. That's why fashion brands, like a H&M, for example, is probably at this time here, and let's call it summer 2020, already know what they're going to sell in summer 2021, and they're planning that now. So probably even further than that for brands like an H&M, but definitely something that is sometimes forgotten in translation between that and a creator's merchandise or clothing line. And the top voted question, which I'll probably do one more, is, do you think limited edition is a successful business model for merch? 1000%. Limited edition is a successful business model for merch. Scarcity is something that is an incredible enticing factor for people to buy. People like being part of something that's exclusive. Anything you can do to also raise the value, but may potentially raise even the cost, but lower the amount of items. Even if you want to be transparent, like, hey, there's only 20 of these shirts, there's only 50 of these shirts. We made these bracelets, but there's only 100 of them. So we're going to be part of the select few that have these on our wrist. Anything that makes people feel part of this community and this club in a tighter knit way is always a really good idea. You see this a lot in the streetwear industry, and that's a really great place to draw inspiration and ideas from. Another question that was top voted, and probably the last one I will do before I sign off, is, how do I go about sourcing graphic designers for my merchandise? Should I work with them on a contract basis or do a royalty-based system? I'm glad that we got this question because I think it's really important and something that a lot of people don't know. One thing is, if you're a creator and you're selling merchandise, then you have to understand that the people that are buying your merchandise is because they want to support you. They want to support the brand. The design needs to be nice. The design needs to be appealing, but they're not buying it because the design is phenomenal. And so as much as I love and value the work of graphic designers, I think it's oftentimes unprecedented for graphic designers to expect a royalty from creator merch, because the sales are not coming from extraordinary designs and graphics. The sales are coming from support for that creator. So I would say you always, always, always want to work with a graphic designer on a contractual basis. You also want to make sure, again, always, 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 that you're signing a contract that's called a transfer of rights. And that basically means that when the creators, when the graphic designer is creating your design and your logo, they own the rights to that logo until they transfer them to you. And so you want a contract that says, hey, so-and-so made this design, they're transferring it over, and I've paid X amount of dollars for the graphic, and you get the creator to sign or the designer to sign. And that will protect you from, you know, a situation ever happening in the future where you sell 5,000 shirts with this design on them, and the designer comes back and says, hey, actually, I own that logo, and you need to pay me a lot more for than what you already did. And at the end of the day, if you haven't signed that piece of paper, then they have right to that logo and its IP. So you just want to protect against nasty things like that happening. All right, guys. Well, hopefully that's helpful. If you guys ever have any more particular questions about creator-related things or brand building, feel free to DM me on Instagram at Zach.thecreator. Zach spelled Z-A-C-K, and then .thecreator. And then we will also feel free, if you guys are a creator that's looking for assistance with merch, you can reach out to me about Fan of a Fan to be a potential partner in that at Zach, Z-A-C-K, at fanofafan.co, not .com, .co. And we can chat there as well. Always happy to take on new emerging creators and artists and helping them launch brands. So everyone, please feel free to continue the discussion on the VidCon Discord server. Yeah, thank you for having me, VidCon. It's been a pleasure, and I hope to see you guys again soon.